Hello and welcome to episode 179 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right, just a couple of regular guys drinking some irregular beers, talking about Magic the Gathering, and usually focusing on MTG Arena, the online client.
That's right, except for today, we are jumping into our Drunken Vorthos episodes. That's right, this is part two of the Aetherdrift story. We're only talking about story today. No cards, no combos, no meta. Just hanging back, drinking some beer, and talking some lore. Yeah.
I can't promise I won't talk about cards at all, but it will definitely not be the focus.
All right. Well, if you try to talk about cards, I will cut you off. Uh,
Smart, smart.
just just throwing a little racing term in there just for you, you know. Um, anyway, each week we bring a beer, we drink it, we rate it on scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So with Jeff, what is on tap?
All right, we are going back to Bickford Brewing Co. I believe we were pleasantly surprised with their
Hmm.
first offering. So we're trying them out again. This is Dog Park Pale Ale. It's 5.3%, a little
Hmm.
heavy
A
for a
little heavy.
drunken Vorthos, but we
I
thought,
know.
it was worth it. And so, yeah, I'm excited to try this one. I like the minimalist can design they have going here. There's a lot to like
Hmm.
about what I've seen from Bickford so far. So down to crack into the pale ale.
Yeah. I think this is like one of their like classic beers. This is one of like their flagship ones. So this is
Hmm.
where we have talked about how we're not doing a silver series anymore for the Drunken Vorthos, and so this is more of their like park drink kind of beer that you pick up and like have on one of
Yeah,
those days, which is essentially what we're trying to get with the silver series or the Drunken
yeah.
Vorthos.
Every microbrewery, and I'm not saying it's necessarily this one because they have few beers, but every bright microbrewery needs at least one beer that people who are not that into craft beer, like are more into macro brews, can
Hmm.
order if they like go there with their friends or
That's
whatever kind
right.
of thing.
It's the gateway,
So
you know.
exactly. So this could be their version of that. Could might not be. That it might be like what you get after that, after feeling adventurous and they've
I
lured you in. But
This might be like beer number two for sure. I
yeah,
could see that.
on that pathway to the lovable world of craft beer.
Yeah, that's right. All right, Jeff, let's crack it open and get started. Oh, there we go. I almost lost the top there. Whoops.
Yeah, we
Anyway,
just don't have enough practice opening
I
beers, I guess.
I know I gotta practice some more. Anyway, we have some magic news. Aetherdrift spoilers are officially out, and the set is getting spoiled as we speak. The full image card gallery, I think, is literally just next week. Like we're a week away from knowing every single card in the set. Pretty exciting stuff. So get out there, see some of the new mechanics. We will be talking about them in a couple weeks when we have our episode all about those cards. Um, but yeah, this weekend there are two events that are happening. There is the Explorer Qualifier weekend. So if you're not already qualified for that, the play-in is on Friday. Try to spike the play-in, jump in the qualifier, make it to the PT. But if that doesn't happen, there is a Duskmorn Arena Direct event where you could win two booster boxes of Duskmorn House of Horrors. So pretty sweet. That's a sealed event, and I will be playing in that one. So I'm quite excited.
And is that one uh tomorrow, Friday? Can I play it Friday night?
You can play it Friday night all the way till Saturday. Maybe you can play it through Sunday. I think Monday morning you can finish before they kind of do the whatever day switch or whatever. But yeah, so really sweet. That should be a cool one. I like these Arena Direct events a lot. They like being able to win boxes of Magic cards is always fun. And well, I haven't been able to do it yet, but I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah, if I can like stay up late tomorrow and play it, then I might give it a go.
That's right. And if any of you are interested in doing this, jump into our Discord channel. The link is in the show notes below. But we do have a section for limited, and when things like this come around, sometimes we like posting our sealed pools and just be like, "Hey, how do I build this? What can I do?" And then people
Yeah.
can give you suggestions and stuff before you jump into the games. Maybe get some insights you hadn't heard of before, or maybe some cards you had overlooked. So man, sealed events are a lot of fun. Nobody builds the same deck exactly the same way with the same pool. Uh, so yeah. All right, Jeff, let's jump right back into Aetherdrift. Before we get into the story, I want to say another quick spoiler alert. Hey, this is part two of the Aetherdrift story. If you did not listen to part one or you did not read the chapters, go back to last week's episode and listen to that. And then the rest of the story won't be spoiled for you. But just wanted to say that just in case anyone missed it or missed the actual title of the episode, this is part two.
Yeah. Chapters
Okay,
4, 5, and 6.
that is right. So jumping into Aetherdrift by K. Arsenal Rivera. Episode number 4 is Little Guy Shortcuts. So the last thing that just happened right before this was all the races were on Amonkhet for that stretch, and Sita had just seen like the Amonkhet champions basically like wrap up the old dude that sacrificed himself to the giant bee or whatever, and he is now back mummified and ready to race again.
Yeah.
And where we pick up right here in this story is we are with Mohar, Sita's father, in Ghirapur's underground, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a barracks-ish.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, it's an army barracks essentially. It
Hmm.
wasn't super clear to me at first that it was like an underground thing. I kind of thought it was like the way they made it seem with all the people like listening in and there's no privacy. At first, I was just like, is this just like the regular army barracks and they're just gonna have this discussion about overthrowing the empire? And then realized,
Yeah.
no, this must be some sort of like underground group of rebel. I guess are they rebels if they're previously in power? No, they're no longer in power.
So, well, that's actually funny because when I said the word underground, I meant like I thought it was literally underground. Um,
Oh, sure, sure. But
so
I meant, but like, why would you have your barracks underground unless it was if it
I
was
don't know.
for?
I have no
Anyways,
idea. Anyway, it's one of those things where I maybe was getting confused, but Mohar is going to talk to Rudra, who is he's the guard captain, so he used to be in charge of like the consulate guards. And he lived in a big mansion like Mohar did, but since the new regime kind of took over, he has been he lives in the barracks with all of his like subordinates, or I guess everyone below him. I guess privates. I don't know.
right,
Um,
and that is the part that confused me. I don't understand if this is like the actual soldiers' barracks for the new like
thing.
leaders, the new government, or if it was some sort of it was the old group and they had a secret meeting spot and they're like, we hate the new ways.
I think that they might be in a special place as they're talking right now, but where he lives, he still takes orders from the new regime.
Right.
They're all still in place. So they still do their usual duties. He just has kind of been stripped of the lavishness of what his life used to be. And now he's kind of just one of the soldiers. Even though he still like has power over them, he just doesn't get to flaunt it the way he used to. And
Yeah.
Mohar is here to get Rudra to be on his side to help him for his cause. Which it only takes a bottle of whiskey, it turns out. That's all you have to do to bribe this guy. Which, hey, I mean, like, hey,
I
somebody
get
comes up
it.
to you, could you help us out? I got your favorite whiskey. You're like, nobody else is giving me whiskey, so sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, why not? I'll risk my life for this.
Yeah, and they
Uh,
basically, is it at this point they decide that they need to like stop the race?
yeah, so they basically because he's like, oh, this Rudra guy is not going to be just convinced by whiskey alone and just me telling him I'm going to overthrow the empire. He's the type of guy who
Hmm.
needs details. So he's like, I'm going to plant some traps at the end of the race, and then we're going to pop out and fuck everyone up. Rudra's
Hmm.
like, That sounds like it could be bloody. I'm in. And I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, those are really a lot of details into this well thought out plan that
Yeah.
convinced him.
Well, I think it also is like Mohar needs Rudra to help him set the traps because
Right.
he won't be able to do it. He won't be able to like sneak on and make this whole thing because um, anyway, it seems like they don't want anyone to finish and they want the race to be ruined forever, and this will help them overthrow everybody. Freaky stuff. Not a big fan of that conversation, that whole thing. Yeah. Anyway, we jump over to Muraganda, where Vin is interviewing this ape druid Grenar. Now, this was the first time I did you know that Vin was like an eyeball in the first half of this story? How
Yeah.
did I miss that? I don't know.
I don't know. If you
Somehow
go back and skim those first few stories, there are so many lame eye puns. They're everywhere.
I guess like I guess I knew that he had one eye, but I wasn't thinking that it was like he
Oh, that he
was an
was.
eye.
I see. I see. No, I had him as like essentially what's that thing in D&D? It has like one big eye. I
Yeah,
think in D&D they
beholders.
actually have a whole bunch of little eyes as well. But I was just
Yeah, yeah.
imagining like him, this big floating eye, but he also had a really long neck for some reason. So in my brain, he was just like really long neck, like a lollipop with an eye on the top.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah,
don't know
I
if
mean
that's what
like
they were going for, but that's what he turned into in my brain is like a lollipop where the top part
lollipop.
is an eyeball.
The lollipop guy.
Big ol' eyeball.
Um yeah, anyway, I just had written down that note being like, did I just miss this? Like he's been in the first three chapters and I just didn't know he was just an eyeball guy. Um I think he's kind of closer to like Fibblethip-ish.
I think that's probably what they meant. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, he's
he's like
related to
homunculus.
Fibblethip.
Hmm.
But
Everybody loves a homunculus. Anyway, Grenar, the druid ape from Muruganda, they're basically talking about like, oh, it's so cool. Look at all these floating islands that are up in the sky. Like that's awesome. And Grenar's like, those are not floating.
yeah,
And it just like stops the interview. Vin's just like, um, I mean, they are like they're up.
definitely see them in the air.
Like, what are you talking about? And then Grenar says something like spooky or I don't know, mystical, just being like they're falling, and when they decide to fall to Earth, they'll just do that kind of whenever they want to, and just
Yeah.
I don't be here when that happens. Um, it's like okay, cryptic guy.
What a
Um,
cool place Murugata is, you know.
yeah, yeah. All the people there are super chill and fun. Um, there is a part where Vin is making some jokes about how his camera crew is drenched because the river is like falling on top of them. But he specifically is talking about the gaffers, the grips, and the his best boy is a wet boy. Um, I just uh, all of these jobs require a lot of electricity, and so it would be like a really huge problem if any of them were wet in any capacity. So like, I was reading that being like,
They just show up soaking wet to the set.
yeah, just like, dude, what? And like all their gear, because most of them they're just like carrying gear around, it's just like big
Yeah.
poles and like lights and stuff. So I'm just like, that's a really like I know you're joking, I guess, but like that's a big problem. Like of
Yeah.
anybody to get wet like that, they're probably all dead, basically. Um, oh gosh,
I mean, later he's using like a drone, right? So
Mm,
it's because his camera crew
maybe
all died.
they all died.
Yeah.
Anyway, now we do that thing where we jump back into the middle of the race as it's happening, and we are now on Muruganda. We're with Chandra. And she's like doing this thing where she's complaining about all the trees that are around. God, there's so many stinking trees, and the raceway is so cracked and shitty because the trees are like growing under it and breaking it up or growing on top of it. It's like Chandra, calm down, okay? You don't have
Yeah.
to be so
Chill.
rude.
Yeah.
The people here, the apes or whatever, the dinosaurs and the oozes are doing their best to make a nice raceway for your stupid Aetherspark thing. You don't have to be so mean about it, okay?
Yeah.
Like.
I mean, although the ape druid when he learned that all of the people were watching him through the camera, he did grab the camera and
Oh, you're right.
absolutely hurl it into the floating river. So,
You're right. You're right. He does not like this happening at all. You are absolutely right.
yeah,
Uh,
he's not necessarily doing his best to make the race as convenient as possible.
yeah. Um, Now, Chandra is like around the Voyagers, which is like the BB-8 team, the robot things. I guess they're kind of like, I don't know, from Portal or any sort of like ball robot, whatever.
Star Trek.
Yeah. And she just decides like I could try to maneuver around all these vines and stuff, or I could just blow a giant fireball through the middle and just go straight through. And in normal Chandra fashion, that's exactly what she does. Now, we jump over to Spitfire, who's right behind her, and decides it's a trap. I don't know. She's like, oh, I can't go through that giant gaping hole that Chandra just made because she's trying to trick me into going through it.
Hmm.
And it's like, I don't think she's thinking about you at all, Spitfire. Like,
Yeah, doesn't even know that you're there.
yeah, she doesn't care, and I don't know. You're just, I don't, whatever. It's ridiculous. So then, all of a sudden, she sees once again that Winter is in front of her, which, yeah, of course he is. And also in front of Chandra. And so Chandra is now on to the Winter zapping around stuff.
Yeah. So she suspects that he's cheating.
Hmm.
Doesn't really know how, but it seems like every race, he's nowhere to be found. She assumes he's way, way behind, and then turns some corner, and all of a sudden he's in first. So
Yeah.
something fishy is afloat, I would
Yes.
say.
Something's going on. And she thinks to herself, man, what does he need an Aetherspark for anyway?
Yeah.
Which
What a stupid thought.
that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, Chandra. What the fuck?
Yeah. Way to be
Oh,
like, just show your privilege, Chandra. It's like,
yeah,
no,
holy
what do they
crap.
need $1 million for anyways? Like,
Wow. Yeah,
don't
who
they
would
just
want to
have billions like me?
yeah, who would want to be able to just like teleport to any part of the entire universe at any moment,
Yeah.
and flee any situation or be like essentially
What,
free?
what could
What?
he possibly want that for?
I don't know. Literally the same fucking reason that you want to give it to Nissa. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like shit.
the same reason you'd like being a planeswalker.
Yeah,
Like,
like holy crap.
yeah,
Anyway, so she's thinking that
idiotic.
thing. I
I
know
would
it's
only
crazy.
ever like someone should, the only person I would think that about is Chandra because
Yeah,
it's like you can already do it, you know. Then it's like, oh, this person's a billionaire. Why are they fighting so hard for
for
the million
more
dollar
money.
prize or whatever?
Well, that's exactly what happens because immediately after that, we jump to Spitfire's point of view, and she thinks the same exact thing to Chandra. Like, why is she trying so hard to get the Aetherspark?
Yeah,
And that does make sense. It's like, I don't know. That's more of a head scratcher because it's like, what can you, if you get two, can you like do it twice as good? I don't know.
maybe. Yeah, maybe get super planeswalking abilities.
Yeah, double spark.
Nobody's ever tried it. The Aetherspark is the first of its kind, you know.
That's true. I mean, like we have had planeswalkers who shared a single spark, right? The twins.
There you go. Yeah.
But we have not had one planeswalker that had two sparks. So maybe that's what happens at the end of the story. I don't know.
We
Anyway,
do know because we read it. But
I well, I obviously I'm trying to build some sort of tension, Jeff. God. All right.
yes, it could happen. It's possible. It's on the table.
Right. So they all kind of pull ahead. The Amonkhet team uses Bossry to make like these sand blades to also cut through the trees. And Chandra is now tailgating them because she says like, this is Spitfire. Spitfire is tailgating the Amonkhet team because she doesn't want to go through the fireball part. And she says, I can make it past Chandra after I get past them. I might as well just like drift or
Yeah.
whatever it's called. What's
I
it
think
called
is.
when is it drifting?
I think it, like in cycling, I think it would be called drifting.
Drifting. It's something
Doesn't
like
sound
that.
quite right.
It
But
doesn't. But anyway, yeah. So they're drifting behind
yeah.
the Amonkhet team, and right as that's happening, there start to be like a bunch of earthquakes because, well, the thing that the ape druid said earlier he said something about the moon falls, basically, and all those pieces, I guess, are part of the moon or something. Anyway, they all just decide that they're gonna fall right now, and there's like I don't know, basically asteroids falling from the sky, and the Earth is cracking open, and like just shit's going crazy. It's like really the worst time to have this race at this place, I guess.
Which it seems like the case on every plane, by the way.
It's
Like,
true. It's true.
the same thing happened on MK. By the way, we were very close. It's drafting.
Oh, it's drafting.
Yeah.
Wow, how could we forget drafting? That's
Yeah, I
like
know. It's like the thing we do.
it's the thing we do. Um,
I knew I
anyway,
liked cycling. Should take it out.
yeah, yeah. I cycle, but I only draft, and I
I'm an
don't. I don't.
expert drafter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't like being in the lead, but I do like to draft.
Yeah.
Anyway, the whole the Ghirapur Grand Prix like have this special place for this exact situation, being like, hey, if the sky does happen to fall, there is a rest spot that is safe from the earthquakes and the meteors. Is there such a place? Does that exist? I don't know. I guess so. But basically,
It's
everyone's
just a
like, oh,
typical moonfall, you know? Like, it
yeah, yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They decide to pull over to the side onto that space, and Spitfire is having is being reminded of when the Phyrexians attacked Avishkar, when the sky opened up and arms were coming out and destroying things. So she's getting a little stressed out by this, obviously, bringing her back to a horrible disaster in her past. But like, not everyone has decided that they are going to pull off.
Not my boys.
Yeah,
They
your
ain't scared.
yeah, your boys. Who are your boys, Jeff?
The Rakdosians. I don't know what their
Hmm.
actual team name is, but it's the guys that juggle chainsaws on the hoods of their cars.
Hmm.
Unsurprisingly, they don't give a fuck. They're
They do
just like,
not.
we can go right through this moonfall, which I thought the scene was going to be about them driving into the obvious like natural disaster and just getting fucked up, but that's
Yeah.
not what happens at all.
No, it's not. So these are the End Riders, and they're doing a pretty good job of like dodging all the meteors or all that. But Jeff, what happens instead? What happens instead of them just getting smushed?
So they were so focused on the moonfall that they did not notice a big trap that was set. It was like a false bottom, like a hole. It looked like there was no hole there. They put a big leaf over it or something. It was a big hole. And when they fell into that hole, they encountered a whole bunch of dinosaurs, massive, massive dinosaurs that they couldn't even believe would fit in that hole. And riding these dinosaurs on like huge platforms built on top of the dinosaurs. It makes me think of like the Lord of the Rings. There was
Hmm.
the elephants that had the
The
like
Oliphants,
towers
yeah.
just full of orcs on them. It's like that, but it has like crazy, vicious lizard men raiders on it,
Hmm.
and they get fucked up by the dinosaurs and lizard men raiders, and not by the moonfall.
Yeah. It really came out of nowhere to the point where I really thought that this was the trap that Mohar had set. I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
"Is
like,
this
wait,
what we're
what?
talking about?" That seems like a really strange thing.
How did he
Um,
even set this up?
yeah, it's on a different plane. I'm so confused. Um, so after they fall into it, everyone else kind of sees this trap and are trying to avoid it. Um, but the Goblin Rocketeers are also like kind of running into it, and I think basically what happens is Duretti gets hit. He gets hit. He runs over one of those like rope trap things, where like you
Like a
know the
big
classic
net that just
like a big net.
yeah.
Yeah. So he runs his giant car into it, and it like lifts him up into the air,
Yeah.
and he's asking for help from Redshift, which is like his right hand man. And Redshift's just like, sorry, boss, I'm gonna be a better boss than you, and just like takes over the team and just says like, peace
Yeah.
out, fuck you, I'm stealing
Yeah.
the team.
He says, "Don't worry, I'll be a better boss than you were."
Yeah,
And then bucks right off.
fucks right off. Which honestly, that's the most goblin thing I've ever heard
Yeah.
of. Like,
I would have
yeah,
been surprised if all the goblins were like, "We gotta save
yeah,
Duretti."
it helped him
And
out. Like,
a little shocked that Duretti was like, "What? They're not gonna
mhm.
help me?" Like, of course they're not. They're goblins.
In this story, Duretti is extremely very different than what I thought Duretti was like.
Yeah.
We will get into that in moments. But anyway, so end runners fall into this trap, and Duretti is now also has been trapped by these lizard raider things. Chandra also decides to stay in the race and not avoid and just try to avoid the asteroids instead of like I so the pulling over to the side thing, it seems like half of the people do it and half the people don't.
I think
And
that's about what happens. Yeah.
yeah,
And the people that don't, for the most part, are the people that you would expect not to be fair.
yeah. And they do kind of get fucked up. So it does make sense. So it's not like oh, it
But
was
but
that was an
not by the
idiot.
thing that everyone was avoiding. That's
That's
the
true.
best part. They're like,
Nobody
whoa, those
gets
asteroids,
squished.
we better pull over. Nobody gets hit
Nope.
by an asteroid. They all get bamboozled by this trap, which the asteroid was like a convenient distraction for.
I guess so. Maybe the raiders control the asteroids or something.
The moon gravity.
Yeah, the moon gravity. Um, anyway, Chandra
Little
decides
advanced
that
tech for dinosaurs and lizard men.
well, they're mystical.
That's true.
Chandra
No, I
wants
think it
to
was the
stay.
gorilla. I think it was the gorilla druid. He did it
Probably.
somehow.
Yeah, now that he's not on camera anymore, we don't have any evidence of him actually
He set the
starting
trap
it.
too. He like talked to those guys. He was like, "Hey, there's gonna be this race. Don't worry, I'll pull my moon gravity, classic me." And
Hmm.
while everyone's looking at that, you spring your trap. You just got to figure out how to get an absolutely massive dinosaur into a hole in the ground that nobody will notice. That's
Yeah,
that's all
yeah.
you got to do, lizard folk.
Oh God. Anyway, Chandra decides that she's going to keep going because she sees that the speed demons also didn't pull over. Um, and she's able to drive around the dinosaur pit and shoot right after them. Um,
I imagine her like drifting around it, like a big pit opens up and she just like pulls the
yeah,
handbrake and like
the Akira
perfectly
slide
around.
around for sure
Yeah.
on her motorcycle. Um,
Yeah.
the Raiders are also have a car or something. I think they're also racing against the speed demons, or I guess they're on a dinosaur, right? They're on dinosaurs. They just kind of like join the race because they see the back of like the speed demons have loot in it, and they're like, you know what? I don't know what that is, but I want it.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna fucking steal that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think what actually kind of happens is that they're trying to like wreck the speed demons and they throw a hook onto their car and it happens to get the cage and Winter ends up using the car to pull it away instead of like a demon claw like he has been with like the glitch ghosts and stuff. So when he rips it away, the cage flies off and then the raiders end up having loot,
Yeah.
which is a little more accidental, but anyway, loot is now with
Yeah.
the raiders.
Yeah, I interpret it as like they got the hook on. It happened to get Lute's cage or whatever, and Winter was like, "Well, fuck, you can take him." Like,
Hmm.
like I'm not gonna sacrifice myself for that thing.
Myself for that thing, yeah. Uh,
But it could also have been an accident. It wasn't super clear. It does say like he makes a move to kind of jerk the hook off, and the hook happens to take Lute.
take the
So
yeah, but
whether he
it
knew
did
that was going to happen or he
or
didn't.
not. Yeah, yeah. I think that either way, Winter doesn't really care that this happens.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't matter. Um, and the speed demons race off, and Chandra is now trying to decide whether because she sees it all happen. She sees loot with the raiders now, so she's deciding, do I finish this race? Which is why I'm like on thin ice with my mom, and I spent all this time trying to put this thing together. I'm working with Kaladin to like win this whole thing, or I could give all of that up and then try to save this little orange guy. And she fucking quits the
Save
race
the-
and decides to save the stupid orange guy.
Yep.
This is like I know that they've been trying to build us up to this because she's like worried about him and thinks about him and all this stuff, but like it just feels so unmotivated almost like you don't know anything about this guy like
I think most of Chandra's actions in this story overall feel not sufficiently motivated.
yeah, yeah, I don't know, I guess we need her to save him or whatever. um Anyway, so she stops doing that, and Kaladin, who's her co-pilot guy, who's somewhere else, he's not on the bike, but he is obviously not super stoked about this and is kind of like pissed. But he just like turns off the comms or whatever and was like, "All right, see ya." And she jumps on like a dinosaur and starts riding that instead.
Well, she was like, if you cross the finish line first, we still win.
Yeah,
Like it's like such a stupid point. Like,
yeah.
don't worry. Like, if you cross the finish line,
Don't worry.
our team still
You,
wins. Click.
yeah. Don't worry. You can do everything, and then I still win with you. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
He's like,
that
doesn't make me feel better at all. Like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
the
It's kind of like she's trying to like have her cake and eat it too, where it's like, oh, I win both ways this way,
fuck? Don't worry, I could still get the Aetherspark for Nissa Koladin. You just have to
Yeah.
win the race for me. It's
And
like,
then I just get to
that's not
take
what
it.
I was worried about at all.
No, I don't care about that. It's like, oh. Anyway, yeah, she jumps on a dinosaur to go after these raiders. Now, Chandra also just in this moment, she just kind of jumps off of her bike. Why she couldn't just continue to use her bike? I don't think that he's on the bike. So, like, what's the point? Just use the bike instead of the stupid dinosaur thing. Anyway,
Well, Loot was on the dinosaur. She trying to get to.
did she jump on the same dinosaur as the raider that had loot? I don't think so, right? Because
No,
then,
she works her way over to it.
yeah,
Like she jumps on one dinosaur, and then I guess instead of taking the motorcycle all the way to the one that she cares about.
that's what I
she-
thought. It just seems
Yeah.
like that the motorcycle is probably better. But anyway, it means
It's more
that we don't.
badass though to like jump off the moving motorcycle. I
It's
guess you would
true.
do that later anyways. So
Yeah,
equally
Wha-
badass.
whatever.
She was thinking.
Spitfire jumps onto the track again, and through all the chaos and the dinosaurs and the raiders and the asteroids falling, she's like, you know what? It's time to use another canister of Aether, and then does the thing, and she goes into super slow mo or super fast mode or whatever it is, to get through all of the limbs of the trees and all the shit that's going on. I think she grinds on a dinosaur's neck and head at one point, and like
Yeah.
just a bunch of like cool Tony Hawk stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
And through that, she sees that Chandra's motorcycle is smashed. So we do have 1 second of, oh my God, is Chandra dead? But like we all know that she's not. And then immediately after that, Spitfire sees she's on a dinosaur. So it's not even like
Yeah.
a plot point thing. I don't know. It just seems kind of like it's more of a symbol of her leaving the race. Essentially, her leaving her
Right.
motorcycle behind is like, I'm no longer in the race. Now I'm
Yeah.
doing my own thing.
I think that's
really
what it
is.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And also for her, because she was on her ether, it felt like an eternity between
you're
seeing
right. You're right.
Bike and seeing Chandra.
You're right. You're right. We just don't feel the same way when we're reading it.
Yeah, unless we are also on ether
Yeah.
while reading.
I guess also the thing is that like she sees the squashed motorcycle and it flashes her back to like when there's the Phyrexian invasion is happening, and basically they're running out of the house with her father. He jumps in the car and they're trying to drive as fast as they can to get to her mom's friend's house, which they're pretty positive that's where her mom is at that time. And her dad drives super fucking slow and obeys the law of traffic or whatever.
Yeah.
And right as they're pulling down the street, they see that the Phyrexian arm comes and smashes the house. And that's when her mom dies. So
And this one was like, come on, like even if he's a stuck-up like consulate aristocrat or whatever, it's like there's a fucking invasion going on, and your wife and mother of your child is over in some house, and you're like, one must obey the rules of the road, Sita. Like, no, you're fucking pedal to the metal, dude.
yeah, holy shit. And so this is one of the reasons why Sita's like, I want to go as fast as I can. And it's like a motivation for her being a good, like, fast driver.
Yeah.
Also because her father refuses to let her drive when she's like, just let me do it. I can get there faster. And he says no, because she's a woman or something.
Because it's not ladylike or like
Yeah,
someone of her
something.
position, of her privilege shouldn't drive or something like that.
This one felt a little heavy-handed to me, I think.
It was a little on the nose, and I just
Yeah.
like, even for someone like him, I just don't believe, because there's a scene from his perspective about how much he loved his wife and like misses her so much and stuff. Like, would he really like? And also, it's an invasion. Are people just like driving
Yeah, I think
normally?
in
No,
yeah
there's
in it,
fucking panic.
there's like crazy shit going on, and I think part of it, like maybe from his perspective, he's like trying to be able to make sure he gets them there safely, as opposed
Mm,
to let's just get there as fast as possible, and we might smash into something on the way there, like and die. Um, and so like they could have different like memories of that particular moment, but
for sure.
it did kind of feel like I get it now. This is why she's a racer. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
It was a little on the nose.
everybody's slowing me down, and I could be so much faster if these people weren't next to me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, which is exactly how she feels. So what are you gonna do? Um, then while that is happening, I think Pia is trying to talk to her and be like, "Hey, like focus on the race or something." I can't exactly remember what she says. Um, or
I
is it
think
when is that when she's trying to tell her to slow down and go back to the hiding spot?
I think Pia is like go help Chandra.
Oh,
And
right.
and Sita's like, fuck no.
Fuck that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Pia's like, no, you have to go help. That's what it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pia's like, you have to go help Chandra. Like, she's in danger or whatever. And Sita's like, fuck you. No, I'm not doing that. I'm in a
Yeah.
race right now. I can't believe you would ask me to do that. So she turns off the radio and says, like, who needs family anyway?
Yeah,
Um,
his family's always just slowed me down because it was
yeah,
after the thing with their
the
father.
whole the father thing. Um, totally makes sense. That was, yeah, Pia, I get it, but like Chandra
You had to
doesn't
know
need.
she wasn't really likely to say yes to that, Pia.
Also, Chandra doesn't need Sita's help, really.
Right. It's like, what am I gonna do? It's a fucking
It
dinosaur
doesn't-
full of lizard men. I'm good at driving. I'm gonna
Also,
drive.
Chandra's a fucking planeswalker. Like, if she needs help, she'll be okay.
Yeah, the
Um,
thing that's in trouble here is loot, and I don't care
yeah,
about that.
yeah, that stupid thing. Yeah. Anyway, we do jump over to Loot, who's in a bone cage made by the Raiders, and he's quickly joined by Duretti. Um, now, this is where I noticed that Duretti did not act the way that I thought Duretti was going to act. Um,
Yeah.
he's just like a you remember the old artwork for Nicol Bolas when he's like reading his books and he's like an old dinosaur? That's kind of what Duretti is like.
A little bit of that vibe, but instead of
Yeah,
like the academic thing, it's more like a mechanic, like a
yeah.
genius mechanic.
He just like he's like Marshall Sutcliffe. He likes fixing watches, like you know,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
and and like drinking hot drinks, basically.
I wonder if
Just
Marshall has
like,
ever been compared to Duretti before. We should
well,
ask.
I guess he has now. Um, but like, I don't know. Marshall also, I don't know if he likes hot drinks. I know he likes Arnold Palmer's, but um, Duretti just happens to have like steeping hot water with hot chocolate and
Right?
just
It
pours some
whips out
out.
like a
Yeah.
thermos. It's just
It like gives some to Loot, being like, "Hey, here's some hot chocolate. This will make you feel better, or whatever." And then they Loot doesn't talk like a normal person. He just talks through like telepathy. Um, I don't know why he can't just maybe to make him more magical, but he has a mouth and he like whatever.
I don't know,
Um,
but he makes like weird noises while he's like in the audible
yeah, worlds.
noises that just don't mean anything, and
They're
then
just
you
like squeaks and
hear,
stuff.
yeah, you
Yeah,
hear what he's saying in your head.
yeah. Um, but anyway, so they're communicating through that, and they realize they're both from the same plane, and that's part of why the hot chocolate is important. Because Duretti is from wherever that where Cal not where Kaladesh, where Conspiracy is from.
Hmm.
Kylem? No, that's not right. That's where Drace is from. They're on. I should know this. I don't remember right now. I'm not gonna look it up. Um, but it's the same place where Kai is from, because they were both in Conspiracy together when they were first introduced. Anyway, it so happens that I think Loot is also from there, and so this was chocolate from their home plane, and so they were kind of talking about that. Um, anyway, Chandra is now coming to save them from the bone cage.
Yes.
And it seems like none of the raiders are around. I know she's sneaking around, but like This is the classic. Oh, put the prisoners there, and then all of us let's go have a meeting or a party, or
Yeah,
you just
let's
fuck
fuck
off.
off. This is all fine. They're gonna be
Yeah.
cool. Cool. We have them in the bone cage. What could possibly happen?
hmm And
Also, are they on the back of like a giant dinosaur that's
no, I think they're in the ground. I think they're in the pit thing.
okay, so they're not moving. Because I was like
Yeah.
confused about whether this was a stationary prison or they were still in the dinosaur chase.
Yeah, I think that they are no longer in the dinosaur chase. Like that has been done with, and now they're in this other thing. Sorry, I had to look it up. It's so annoying. Duretti is from Fiora. That's what it's called.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
know of that because of one of the battles.
Yes. Um, Sarah. Yeah. Battle of Fiora. Is that the white
I think
black
it's
one?
the board wipe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that would make sense because Kaya and all that. But I think that's where we also realize that loot is also from there, from this hot chocolate moment. Anyway, Chandra is like easily able to just kind of like go and like get them and like
Yeah.
unlock the cage
Seems
fairly
like pretty
easily.
much no problem.
I think there's like a raider that tries to attack her, and then right as that's happening, Pia hits it with like a piece of metal, and they're all there together.
Yeah, and then Pia unlocks it because she's a
Yeah,
renegade.
right, and she knows how to open locks of
Yeah,
all sorts, even bone locks. Um, so
I was kind of like, come on, the random bone cage just doesn't have a fucking lock on it. Like it's just
yeah,
a bone cage. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like it's like rope or something, right? You just untie it,
yeah,
um, or cut it. Anyway, now they have seems to get some attention from the raiders, and they're all coming towards them. But does it really matter? Because Loot just like points up, and then he doesn't make, but he finds a little guy shortcut, and it happens to be an omen path, and they're like, okay, that seems good. And then they're like, let's just go through this omen path. I'm sure that'll get us back to Avishkar, and then we can get back on the race. Maybe that sounds good. Let's just
yeah,
jump through that.
yeah. So I guess they were in some bone prison that was not very far. So these
hmm
people captured these raiders captured them. Were like, I don't know, throw them over there.
hmm
Then left. Chandra and Pia like walk over to the bone prison, open him up, and then walk over to Duretti's car, get in that, and then just start like blasting away.
Yep.
Like they really were not the best at taking prisoners, I guess.
Yeah, but they're raiders. What do you expect? I guess.
Yeah.
Like
They
a
always
bunch of
have their eyes,
goblins,
they're
kind
just
of.
like they have the dream of just more prisoners, and they leave to
Yeah,
go get more and they forget, they lose the ones they already had. I hate when that happens.
I know, right? Like they're leaving to go, like I don't know, steal more racers, but in the end, meh,
You know,
whatever.
you lose the ones
Um,
you had.
yeah. So that's the end of chapter 4. We go through the Omen path, and we don't know where we're going to come out. We assume Avishkar, though. That makes the most sense. Like why would Luke bring us somewhere else besides like the finish line? We're still
Of course.
technically in the race, right?
Now, one thing about this, okay, so they're in Duretti's car, they're
hmm
flying. The I guess the Raiders are still after them or whatever. And Luda's like, just go left, just go left. And left, by all intents and purposes, appears to be certain death.
hmm
So Pia and Duretti say, like, well, no, don't do that. Like, you're going to smash into that huge tree and we're all going to die, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And Chandra's like, no, I think he has little guy shortcuts or whatever. I
hmm
think that's how
Winter
they've
has
been
been,
cheating.
yeah.
Winter's been cheating. So I'm going to trust him. And she just rips the thing to the left. Very Chandra thing to do. Turns out
hmm
she was right. And boom, they go through an omen path. And I just want to like clarify that that's how this thing happened because I have an objection to this later.
Okay. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly what happened. Where nobody wants to listen to Luke except for Chandra, because why wouldn't she? She's
And
been caring about him the
specifically,
whole time.
she's like, this must be how Winter was cheating.
hmm
That's why I trust him, kind of thing.
Yes. Yes.
Like
Okay.
I don't 100% remember, but I remember that being. I can't remember if like my brain did that, but I'm pretty sure it was explicitly called out in the
No,
text
no,
that
no.
Chandra
You're
and
out. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. And she's thinking that we're going back onto the racetrack in Avishkar. Which brings us to episode number 5, first over the line. So we're immediately teleported onto Amonkhet, and we are not in Avishkar. We're also not on the ground. We are in the air. Like just in the air. And above the Luxa, we're just falling to certain death, kind of. And like they're all in like Duretti's rocket car thing. And it's just like, well, I don't know. I guess we just fall to our death. Like Chandra, yeah, we didn't run into the tree, but like this is bad too. Like, what the
yeah. So,
hell?
so we literally have this thing nose diving, except that Pia's on the side, like trying to
Trying
shift
to
her
pull it
weight so
back.
it doesn't go vertically down, and Chandra's like blasting fire in random directions to try to like push the momentum of the car or whatever. But they're all panicking,
Yeah,
and they crash.
they do crash. Um, and they're all kind of concussed.
Yeah,
I think
they're all concussed hard enough that they're
concussed.
just like vomiting.
Yeah, yeah. Chandra is throwing up. And what does Duretti do? Whips up an herbal tea for everybody. It's
Yeah,
some
he's
nice goblin medicine to settle their stomachs and help them steady themselves.
yeah. We now go into like all-knowing like Sage Duretti mode, where he's like, ah, a concussion. Yes, I've been there many times before. Let me guide you through it,
Yeah.
Wilson.
Has he always been like this? What I know of Duretti just in, like, I don't really know him lore wise, I guess, but like his cards and stuff, he seems like schemy and shitty and like mean.
Yeah, he's red black, isn't he?
The first card was red. He was like a commander, and then
Okay.
he was red black and something. Um, but yeah, it's like
Because this is my first, I think, actual introduction to him in any sort of story, as far as I can
yes,
remember. But my imagination of him was like the classic, like crazy genius inventor sort of trope, but for a goblin.
hmm
And like because of the black, yeah, a little bit of that scheming
hmm
going on as well.
So like I kind of thought of him as like the because Duretti has like a robotic body thing. It's like this like spider walkie thing that he sits in. In this story, he doesn't have it, but like it like moves him around. It
Right.
always in some of his other
As his
cards.
car instead, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it always reminded me of like the head master guy. I don't know in Monsters Inc. That weird monster with
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
spider legs and
Yeah,
the eye.
sure.
But the way that he walks around and he's like seems so nice or whatever, but he's actually evil and the horrible person who like wants a bunch of screams. That's what Duretti kind of seemed like to me. I don't know if it's just because of the spider body or whatever, but like he seemed like bad.
Doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Um, anyway,
It's not how he's written here.
he's definitely much more sophisticated. Like he's the kind of guy that like writes poetry or at least reads it and appreciates it and wants to
Makes
recite it to
herbal
you.
tea, right?
Yeah,
That's why he brought his thermos, I guess. It's for hot
or his
chocolate and
many
herbal
many
tea. Yeah,
thermoses. He's
he's
got
just loaded up with like
hot
he has
drinks.
this rocket car in the
Uh-huh.
back, right above his head, probably. Just all of these piping hot water containers.
Yeah, it turns out Duretti's just a barista,
Yeah.
um, but who moonlights as a racer. Um, anyway,
I thought the idea that he's been concussed so many times that he just like knows exactly what to do was kind of funny, but then it's also like
yeah,
somebody who's been concussed that many times would not be speaking like this.
it's true.
It would be
He
they
would
would
speak.
it'd be
He
in a
would speak
rough
more like a
state.
goblin. He doesn't speak
Yeah.
like a goblin. Let's just say that. Duretti surveys the wreckage of his car because, of course, his car took most of the brunt of the damage, and well, the engine's shot, and so he decides he is going to try to fix it, but they're gonna fix it with stuff that they have around them. They are on the Luxa, so they're like on this like oasis thing. So they do have like water and palm trees and like dates and stuff. But they just decide, you know what? You know what an engine needs? A bunch of sand, some palm trees, maybe a coconut, and
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be good to go. Like, what the fuck? How? No.
Yeah.
What? How is this gonna fix a car? It doesn't make any sense. It's some
Well,
like Gilligan's Island like coconut TV or shit. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Like this is you
yeah.
can't. No.
You're overlooking the hippo bones,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Right. There were hippo bones as well. My bad. My bad.
which
Sorry.
is almost like aluminum, we're told.
Right, right, right,
Already
right.
lets
Not
us know
not
hippo bones are almost as good as aluminum.
Yeah, but are you just like putting pieces of that in your engine? Like I think you need like real parts for your engine. I don't know if Duretti's like magic or something or he I don't
Hey man, all I'm learning is my mechanic's been scamming me, bro.
That's true. Hey, you know you could just use hippo bones, dude. Like
Yeah. What are you paying for steel for, man?
come on. Anyway,
Hippo
Duretti
bones are
knows
definitely more expensive than steel.
night is falling. They're all trying to help him, but he's like, you know what? I'll be faster if none of you are around. He's like, also, when it's dark out, I can see better than all of you because I'm a superior species.
So
So,
this was me like still thinking that Toretti is Toretti, and maybe this was an act. And I was like, he's trying to like fix his car and get the fuck out of there and strand them all there. That's what he's
yeah,
gonna do. I get
it
it
did.
now.
Yeah,
That's the Toretti I know and love. Because he's like, no, 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 you go to bed. But really, it is just honestly, you're kind of pissing me off, and I will do it faster without you because I'm better than you in every way. Please just go
yeah.
away.
It's literally what it is, and that's what he does. And so then Chandra and Nissa just like light a little fire, and I think they like do they just like dip their feet in the water and then they just like talk about stuff for a little bit. Um,
Yeah,
they're like
basically.
there's like a mother daughter moment of kind of like why didn't you want to be part of my team? Like why didn't you do this? And Charles like mom, I already told you. Gosh, okay, like don't ask me
Because I
again,
wanted to
please.
win.
Yeah. Um, but it's just kind of like I it's it doesn't feel super satisfying, I guess, for whatever
I
reason.
found this part
Um,
very unsatisfactory. That was the word I was going to use
yeah,
for it. It's unsatisfying. Like, it's just all the same stuff we heard
yeah,
already that we're like, well,
W-
that's not a real reason. Give us a real reason.
yeah. Which,
They just
which,
don't provide one.
yeah. And I totally get that too because like I've definitely had conversations with my mom where it's like you kind of have a thing and you know everybody knows what's happening and then someone tries to ask you directly and you're like, well, it's the same thing. Like I told you already. Like I have nothing
Yeah,
else to say. Like, and
right.
that's kind of what
I
the
have no
conversation
more to
is.
add. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. To
But
me, it
then she
didn't really.
goes into like the whole, like, I just couldn't risk it. I just couldn't risk it thing. It's like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? Like, first
Also,
of all, I guess you can. Like, it's for
this
your
is the moment we
girlfriend to go
also
on vacation with you.
yeah we find out that Chandra has been working on the car with her mom this like whole time.
Yeah,
So
right.
like this wasn't just like Chandra came back and just didn't talk to her mom and like went to the other team or whatever. She came back, stayed with her mom, worked on the car for a really long time, found out the Aether Rangers were the ones that won last year, and decided that she thought she had a better chance with them. That is
Yeah,
cold-blooded
and
bullshit.
that's the whole reason. There's no ulterior reason.
No. And it's just like you spent all that time with you. Like I had said earlier, like in the last episode, like, oh man, why are you not hanging out with your mom? Just hang out with your mom. Like you should do that. She did hang out with her mom, and she decided her mom wasn't good enough.
Yeah, and
Chandra,
not actually based on anything. It wasn't like, oh, Kolodir came up to me and showed me his car, and I was like, whoa, after working with
yeah,
you for so long, I really know this stuff, and theirs just was better.
it's
No,
just like
it was
way
just
better.
like
Like we'll never be
I
as
found out
good.
that like they were the reigning champs. It's like, okay, that's it.
It's not that like. Also, it's more likely that they probably won't win again because everyone's gunning for them because they won last time. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just,
This
just
was I was waiting for the scene and then it happens and I'm like, whoa, that sucked.
yeah.
I didn't get any of the resolution I was hoping for. And I do understand that that was an intentional choice because,
Of
like
course,
you're
yeah, yeah,
saying, these things don't always just get resolved, and there's some deeper reason that we didn't know about. But it would have been nice to have a little more than just like
yeah. Basically, what I got out of it is that Chandra's even shittier than I thought.
Chandra sucks.
Yeah.
But I think you're supposed to take away she's just so passionate about Nissa that like she couldn't risk not going with the best team or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
just like, but you don't even know it's the best team. They just happened to win last year. Like
Yeah.
that's
And
not enough to go on.
they've only had this race like this is the second
Once.
time or like
Yeah, they did it one time.
Yeah,
Like,
God,
it's like,
God.
well, they're undefeated. It's like the classic joke when you win
Yeah.
something like how I'm undefeated against you in Mortal Kombat. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's 1-0, dude. That's not...
I love that you bring that up as like it's a classic joke that I'm undefeated against you. Oh, classic! Yeah, everybody knows it's so good. It's so great. Anyway, so Chandra tries to sleep, but she wakes up as she always does in nightmares because ever since the Phyrexian invasion, she can't get a good night's sleep. She always wakes up during a nightmare or something, and Nissa is always the one that can calm her down and like let her go back to sleep. Obviously, Nissa isn't here, so then she's like, "Well,
So it was Duretti.
Shit, yeah." So Duretti petted her hair,
Yeah, cuddle,
and yeah.
holds her in his arms and shakes her.
He takes out a thermos of warm milk and like
Yeah.
feeds it to her so she go back.
I think this guy just has like a belt of thermoses? Thermoses?
Thermi? I don't know.
Thermi? And he just like pops them out.
Yeah,
like
it's like Batman,
holsters.
but with hot drinks.
Yeah. Hot, comforting beverages. He has them all.
No, none of that happens. Obviously, it is the middle of the night, and Chandra walks over to the Lexa, sticks her feet into it, and she looks up, and there's an Amonkhet god sitting there, also with his feet in the water. Very cute. A feet washing thing together, I guess. This is the Amonkhet god. It's a new one. His name is Ketramoose or Ketramos. He doesn't look like a moose. He looks like a big lion, basically. He's got like the head of a lion. He's all golden and ripped and cool.
Yeah, it's the Amonkhet thing. Like their bodies are like, Greek,
smoking.
Yeah, Olympians, and then their heads are golden masks of
some sort of
thing. Animal.
Though to be fair, I think Kefnet wasn't buff, right? At least
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was still like a 4'5" or some shit though. Like he was a big dude.
That's true. Did like die first though, I think. But anyway. So they're telling stories about stuff. Oh yeah. So Chandra just wants to talk to him about just like I guess it's kind of like, how do you deal with all this stuff? Just like the normal kind of like, hey, you're a god of like entities or whatever. Like, what's it like? Kind of. And he eventually just kind of tells her stuff that she already knows. Like, things are hard, I guess, or whatever. But what he's really interested in, what it really matters, is that he just wants her to tell him stories about other planes because he can't go to those other places. And I also
think the race and wins the Aetherspark.
Yeah, though I think that I wonder if he is also saying that he doesn't want to leave the plane because people depend on him. Right. So he's bound to the plane in a different way than other people are, where like they can go through omen paths, but he's a god and he's like, I have to stay here for my people to like help them.
Yeah, I don't know if Amonkhet was this, but I think Theros was like, the existence of the gods is based on the belief
of the people.
The devotion of the believers. And so if it was a similar thing, it's like, well, if I leave, nobody there believes in me, and I just cease to exist.
I think this one is a bit different. They're a little bit closer to, like funny that Theros is like the Greek mythology one. But like the Amonkhet ones can kind of do what they want, I guess. I don't really know.
Right.
But they definitely don't
also
cease
like
to
the
exist.
art for him, like he's freaking huge, but in this scene he's not. So I guess he can kind of
change forms.
Be the size that he wants to be.
I guess I imagine
you imagine him being massive in this scene?
Yeah, I thought he was huge. And like he just like dips his toe or his foot in the thing. And but he's
tidal
just like
wave
this,
wakes everyone up.
But he's like this giant thing.
I
and
thought
she's
that
just
something about the something the author wrote made it seem like he
he was
was
small
like Chandra's size, except like
size.
a big buff dude.
Yeah.
Anyways, not super important, but one thing I want to mention is Chandra was like, "Are you a god? I thought Nicopolis killed all the gods except Hazaret." And the god just kind of like, oh, silly Chandra. And then says something like, as long as there's life on Amonkhet, there will be gods. And I was like, I really wanted him to say, you were introduced to the three Grixis dual color
Mhm.
gods, but
Oh
didn't
yeah.
you think that we would complete the cycle at some point?
It's true. It's true because I guess this is the moment to talk about cards. But there's two other gods in Amonkhet that we know of: Ketramuse and the frog one.
Yeah,
Shoot.
there's a Simic one and an Orzhov one, right?
Yeah, and Ketramuse is the Orzhov one. Um, but anyway, that's a quick little moment. Doesn't really necessarily come up in any way. I don't know if there's some side stories that care more about it, but is a
This whole
little.
chapter was like, hmm, we could have done something different here, I guess. I understand wanting to get the Chandra Pia discussion in somewhere,
Mhm.
but all of this could have happened completely differently, and like none of this is. It's kind of a side story to
It,
an
it
event.
does feel like a side story. It is kind of nice to have a moment in the race where like we are just like still,
I did
but
like that it was a chapter that wasn't about the
about the
race, really.
race.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. But I do think that it's the timeline of things feels a little off um, because they spend a whole night here, right? I guess it
Yeah.
doesn't really actually no, it does. I had thought about this and I keep forgetting the race stops every Omen path.
Right. Yeah. So somebody got through the Omen path back to
Avishkar.
Avishkar first. We don't necessarily know at this moment who that was, but they're all
Mm,
just chilling now, I guess. And
yeah.
the final leg is in Avishkar again to the finish
In
line.
in the morning.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they stay the night here, and then are obviously trying to get back to the thing. All right. So uh, Spitfire is now racing with the speed demons. We jump right back into the race is already happening, and it's basically between Spitfire and the speed demons, and they can kind of see the finish line. It feels like okay, it's either one of us. One of us is going to get there. And Spitfire knows that her vehicle is just much better than theirs, and that she just needs to gun it and she can go. So if she hits her turns right, guns it down the final stretch, she will overtake them for sure. Um, and right as she's doing that and kind of doing like the ha ha fuckers, I'm going through, a fucking giant golden filigree wall like shoots up out of nowhere and she crashes right into it. And so do the speed demons.
That's unlucky.
That's pretty crazy and not the kind of traps that we're used to in this race. Um,
Yeah. And she's like seconds before, like when it's too late to actually do anything. She mentioned there's a line where she's something like, I have no idea why the city's built-in defenses would be activating right now. And
mhm,
so we now know this is
the trap.
the trap that her dad set
Yeah.
um, with Rudra or whatever that guy's
Rudra.
name was.
Yeah.
Um, but that's kind of your tip off that like what they ended up using was some I what I'm guessing is some old like
Hmm.
defense mechanisms that were built in the city that of course her dad would know all about.
Yeah. And they basically didn't have to build a trap. It was already there. They just had to spring it,
Yeah.
um, which is very lucky for them. It was right next to the finish line. Um,
I know, right? I was like, couldn't they have designed the track a little bit better? They must have known that that shit's there and like somebody could tamper with the race, but
yeah.
I
But
guess
I'm also knowing
it's
that,
only
like,
their second time running this thing. They're
that's
still
true.
figuring
They're not
shit out.
expecting terrorists.
They're still
Um,
hiring people who cheap out on the supplies.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. um,
go check out last episode if you don't know what I'm referring to.
yeah. When she crashes into it, she is obviously like it's smashed up and dazed. But she is like doing the whole like there's blood on her face, and she's looking around, and she sees that her mask is sitting in her lap, and she's like, "Oh no, everybody can see me!" And that's when her dad rushes out with the other consulate guards, and he's like, "Oh my God, Sita, what are you doing?" And then they have a whole fight about that, and that she's racing and blah blah blah, and she's getting arrested. Like they're arresting everybody in the race is like what the purpose of this trap was.
Yeah. The rebellion is not very well thought out. It's not very planned. Um,
It's kind of just like telling the police to arrest all these people that have nothing to do with the political system.
right. It's not like they're arresting Gonti, you know.
Yeah, who's like the head of this whole thing. They're arresting like Winter, like people from other planes. Like it just doesn't seem really
Right. It
like what is
doesn't make any
this?
sense.
What doesn't make any sense? And so then, but he basically, as he's kind of yelling at her or whatever, they're rushing her to the hospital, and he's telling the guards to tell no one about this thing
Yeah,
that
it's
happened.
great embarrassment.
Yeah, and through
I
that, they decide also not to handcuff her as they're
right.
kind of doing that.
I like I defend the shitty Reddit like the shitty planning on the part of the overthrowing the government plan here to Jace just kind of like nudging them, like basically
Hmm.
kind of forcing them to do this, but Jace doesn't really care. Like he doesn't
That's
actually
true.
care about a rebellion
That's
in any way,
that's
shape, or
really
form.
true.
So he's
And
just
they
kind of like,
just
yeah, just like mental magic, get them to do something. I don't know, arrest people, whatever. Like I don't care. And it does kind of have that feel of like they're arresting the racers
like, what
and
is this
like
gonna?
people
That
who
does
were
make sense. You're
invited
right.
to participate in this race from other like what is this plan? And then I was like, oh yeah, it's because Jace is kind of forcing them to do it, but couldn't be bothered to like
Yeah,
think up a real rebellion plan because he doesn't care.
like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, well, speaking of Jace, Vraska and Jace rip Winter out of his vehicle, and they're searching all over the place trying to figure out where Loot is. And they're like, "Dude, blue hair dude, where the fuck is Winter?" And as he's like trying to speak, Jace is like, "You know what? Fuck, I don't really care." And then
Yeah.
just jumps right into his mind and basically breaks it, and is just like looking for the last memory that he has of Loot, and it's the one with the Raiders ripping him off the back of the car. And Vrasco's like, "Dude, you could just ask him where he is." And Jace is like, "I don't have time to go through the lies of what this person is trying to tell me. I just need the information as soon as possible. And if I can do this, why would I do anything else?" And
Right.
you're like, yeah. I mean, yeah, but we do get a lot of moments of Vraska like not being on board with Jace this one around,
Yeah.
which is funny because Vraska used to be the evil one. So it's
Oh,
like,
how tables have turned.
yeah. So like, ooh, okay. Um, so we have that moment. We jump back over. Oh, Jace is also taking Winter as prisoner, I guess, through that kind of thing.
For reasons.
Reasons. We jump back to Amonkhet, and they're trying to get the car to start. And Pia says she's going to do it the old-fashioned way, which does kind of sound like she's just going to have a key, like just an actual like analog key.
Yeah, that's the old-fashioned way. Now,
That's what I thought.
have a key.
Not what she's talking about.
Yeah, she fucking hot wires it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chandra's like, "Wait, what are you doing? What are you doing with those wires?"
Yeah, I liked this actually. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
damn, Pio was a badass back in the day. That's
Yeah,
the
she's
old-fashioned way.
yeah, she's like, "Oh yeah, me and your dad used to do this all the time." You were like, "Okay." It would be kind of the equivalent if like my mom, this would never happen with my mom or my parents, but like if you get old enough and then they like roll a joint and you're like, "Whoa, how did you knew how to do that?" And
Yeah,
like, "Oh yeah, I used to do this all the time." Um, that would be
or
the
you
kind
know, they hot wired a car.
or hot wired a car. Um, so they decide that hey, maybe they do have a shot at getting back into the race. Loot once again points them to an omen path, and they're like, "Sweet, okay, yeah, let's just go through there." And everyone's like, "Well, how do we know it goes where we want it to go?" And they're like, "We trust Loot now. You know what? I'm going to trust Loot. He's going to get us to where we need to be."
Yeah. And this is the part where I like took some objection to because
Hmm.
Sean was like, "Oh, how do we get there?" Whatever, and Luke's like, there's an open path not far from here. He's like, "Oh, how do you know that?" He's like, "Oh, I just know where the open paths are, and I know where they go." And then Chandra's like it's some big revelation. "Oh, that's how Winter was cheating. He was having you show him the omen paths." And I was like, didn't we already have this fucking revelation last chapter? You already figured this out. That's why we're here. Because you trusted Luke because you figured out that that's how Winter was cheating. And it's just like I get that she's now also piecing together like, oh, exactly how it works. Like you know
Hmm.
where the omen paths are. But you already knew that Winter was cheating using Luke's shortcuts. All you're learning now is how the shortcuts work. Like it just felt like such a dumb thing to have at the end of both chapters, with Chandra realizing that Winter was cheating using Luke.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah,
like,
it's almost like why didn't we have the moment with like, oh, just hang out, I'm gonna fix the car. It's like Chandra and Loot talking about omen paths.
yeah,
Like, doesn't that make more sense to be like, hey, by the way, thanks for finding this omen path. How do you know about that? What's going on? Like, we don't even talk to him at
right.
all.
And like, oh, okay, cool. But just the like flabbergasted. I know she was concussed. Maybe that's the answer. Like
Maybe.
between the two revelations, she was concussed and had realized it all over again.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's was necessarily the
No.
intention of the author. And I was just like, we just didn't. One of these revelations has to get cut. It's the same realization at the end
It's
of
true.
both chapters. Just pick whichever one you think is stronger.
Go
And
with
like,
that one.
yeah, because you could just have the car crash through, and you could have Loot fucking grab the wheel if you want.
Hmm.
Like that crashes. You don't have to have Chandra realize it in that moment, but maybe that makes for the scene you want. But then you don't get to have her realize it again. I'm sorry. She doesn't get
That's
to
true.
realize how Winter was cheating twice.
I mean, or you do, and it's what we have here.
It's
Um,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Even
Anyway,
Chandra's not that dumb. It's just like I imagine this scene as Chandra being like, "That's how you were doing it," and then Pia and like Doretti or Luro just kind of standing there like,
yeah,
"Yeah, we
we
all
know.
already realized that,
We
Chandra."
know that.
Like, yeah.
Anyway, we move on to episode 6, The Bloodless Revolution. Bad title, I would say. Bad title.
I feel like there's
Um,
a lot of blood
yeah, yeah. I think there's just a lot of
and
blood.
not a
I
ton of
think there's gonna,
revolution.
yeah, there's gonna be a wad of wood coming up. So they go through the Omen path. Once again, they are falling from the sky, just barreling down towards Avishkar. This time, they have kind of figured things out, so they do, they're able to move around a bit more. They're used to like falling with this giant rocket thing, and
And I feel like I like this because when they come out, they're like, oh, this time they knew what to do. It also felt like they knew they were going to be in the air this time. So
yeah.
Loot was like, oh, it
By
seemed
the
like I
way,
surprised you last time that omen path popped out in the sky. This one also will pop out in the sky, just so you know. Like it
yeah,
felt like that conversation happened off camera or whatever.
yeah,
Um, which I kind of liked because it was like Loot probably knows all these crazy omen paths that go who knows
things.
where, like under the sea and like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And
that's
he's
true.
just like, oh, by the way, yeah, they're not all convenient. Like the
It
ones
is.
you guys know are convenient because you've figured that out and like, okay,
Mhm.
sure, they're all on the ground, but there's tons of them and you can pop out wherever. This one's going to be in the sky again.
Yeah. And Loot obviously knows like which one because like a lot of omen paths like stay open for a long time, but many only open for a few minutes.
Right.
And so he knows that. I will have to say like, do we really have to fall out of the sky again? Loot, come on. Like, why are we picking this one? Or why are omen paths in the sky? Obviously, this is the first time we're seeing that, but did Winter have to deal with this shit? Or were his just on the ground? Ugh.
Well, he was like pre-planning, I guess.
That's true.
Like,
You're right.
hey,
You're
we're
right.
gonna cheat, find the best way to do it. map
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm. Hey, map. It's just Dora's map from the backpack. Map, tell me where to go. They're like
No, it's like when
electrocuting it.
you get the map in Ocarina of Time. Feels like cheat code has been unlocked because you're like,
Yeah,
now I know how to go everywhere.
now I know what to do. Anyway, so they're plummeting down to basically right where the golden wall is, and they soften their blow by like landing on a bunch of like stuffed animals that are like sharks. And it's just like, hey, you like the keen haulers, right? That's the pirate team that we haven't really talked about at all in this podcast. But there's a
Probably
bunch of
because they're
cool,
blue red or something.
yeah, yeah, but more pirates, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Um, but here, just land on a bunch of stuffed sharks. That's fun, right? Um, and it obviously helps Chandra, so she's not concussed this time and doesn't have to throw up all over the place. Fantastic.
Neat.
We do have the consulate guards just like swarming everything and everywhere. Um, but once we get to the ground, Chandra and Jace are reunited for the first time since he was.
Reunited and it feels so good.
Does it feel good though?
I don't
I don't
think
know.
so. I mean,
No.
it's pretty definitively no in this
Yeah.
situation.
Jace basically tells her to step aside to give him loot, and Vraska is just like there as well. I guess that's
Yeah.
kind of like what they
That's
explain.
good description of Vraska in
Yeah.
this scene.
She just kind of like around. She doesn't really do anything. And Chandra refuses because, of course, she's going to put her life on the
She
line for this
loves
thing
loot more than
again.
anything in the known universe except Nissa.
Yeah, and like more than
Even
her
her
mom.
mom.
It's
Loot
yeah, it's
ahead of her mom.
Nissa, Loot, Doretti's tea, Pia.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
that's
the
kind of
T's
how
got
it
to be
is.
higher. That's my hot take.
Yeah. um, so anyway, Chandra just refuses to do that, and as stubborn as ever, she digs her heels into the ground and says, "No, you don't get to have him." And the consulate guards decide to attack. So Jace is like in charge of them as well, but also he could be doing some mind magic stuff. And Chandra tries to shoot some fireballs at Vraska, but they go like straight through her body because she's an illusion. Because Jace loves doing shit like that, man.
Yeah.
He's
Doesn't
tricky.
seem like really needs to, but he just does. But yeah, he's kind of like, I won't fight you, Chandra, but
Mhm.
these guards will.
Yeah.
And then all the
Get
guards
her.
run to the back. And it's like, why wouldn't you fight her though? I don't
Yeah,
really-
just do it.
You're evil now. You totally would.
Yeah. But he's also like, why bother? Let's just like
Yeah. I
wear you
don't
down, I guess.
think you are either too like compassionate about Chandra to fight her or scared that she'll beat you. So I don't really
Yeah.
know why we have to go through this whole song and dance, but
Yeah.
of sending useless guards at her. This is a
Useless-
classic thing in like I don't know, film and novels.
For sure.
You gotta throw the henchmen first, and
We gotta show some cool action before we get to the other
yeah,
stuff.
and then after Jackie Chan easily beats up all those guys, then he has earned the right to fight the main boss.
Exactly. Eventually, she's able to beat off all those guys, or beat up all those guys. Sorry. That's anyway. And Jace,
She beats them up for sure.
yeah, she beats them up,
That's
yeah.
the one I read. I don't.
Yeah,
Might have found a different rendition.
Sorry,
online
sorry.
in some forum somewhere.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't think Chandra does that. But anyway, Jace also mind controls a bunch of the other drivers that have crashed in this wall because not only did the Speed Demons and Sita crash into it, but every other racer
all
that.
did.
So like we have the Speed Brood, we have the Keen Haulers, like anybody else who was racing to the finish line also just saw a big gold wall and just smashed right into it.
Yeah.
Like, and so they're all there too, and so he's
This
mind
was the
controlling
best,
all of
the
them.
best trap of all time. Like it literally got
Yeah.
every single person.
Almost every single one. Yeah. After she sees that he's mind controlling them, she's like, well, I don't want to hurt all the other racers, so maybe I should just go along with this plan and just give up loot. Maybe it's time to let go of this thing that I don't know anything about. And it. Why? Why are we even in this situation, Chandra? Why do you do this to me?
At this point, I would have at least accepted the like, hey, loot can help me get Nissa to Zendikar.
Yeah, that's
Now that
true.
I've talked to him about his ability to map omen paths. But that never comes in. That's not why
No,
she's
it
doing
doesn't.
this. Yeah.
It does. That would make a lot of sense, though. Like, oh, I don't need an Aetherspark. I just need loot to help me do that.
Right.
Um,
Like loot can chart a course for us to
mhm,
get to Zendikar,
yeah.
which is what I've been after this. That's kind of where I thought it was going, and then that just never came up. And I was like, oh,
Huh,
all right,
huh,
cool. Yeah.
fine. Oh, by the way, also a dragon popped out of nowhere. Um,
Yes, of course.
so, of course, in every story we've had since Bloomborough, we've had a random dragon sighting. Um,
Yeah, although it was only an illusionary dragon in Duskborn.
right. Yes. 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 Yes.
This
Um,
one seemed pretty real.
This was a very real dragon. Seems to just have found an omen path. I guess this kind of makes sense with the loot omen paths in the middle of the sky because the dragon also comes through the middle of the
Yeah,
sky.
yeah.
So I guess that kind
To
of
me,
makes
this
sense.
doesn't like they're like it's super weird. Dragons are appearing, and it's kind of like, is that weird though? Like, there are omen paths now.
Yeah, but like I guess they're just not super used to like dragons. I guess in Avishkar they have like cat dragons. Maybe there's like flying cats.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, there's a dragon. It's obviously from Tarkir. That's where all the other dragons are from too. They just are popping up different places, and it's becoming a problem. And they are attacking everybody. And Jace is just like Chandra, like let it go. Don't worry about me. Go fight the dragons. Be the hero you
yeah.
want to be, and I'm just gonna
And
go away.
just give me my baby so I can get
Yeah,
the fuck out of here.
like holy shit. So this is one of the reasons why she's like, yeah, okay, I'll give up loot.
Yeah,
Um, but right as she does that, Sita is getting. We jump over to Sita. She's getting lectured by her father about you shouldn't be driving so recklessly. You can't be doing this. You're a proper lady, and
yeah.
blah blah blah
This
blah
is
blah blah.
beneath you.
And
What would
she
your
could,
mother think?
yeah, ugh, that's brutal.
Tough thing to say.
Uh, yeah, exactly. Because like actually, I think she would say something differently than what you think, Dad. But she's not getting into that right now. Sita looks over and sees that. Oh, she's thinking in this moment. I have one more canister in my belt thing. I can use this Aether. The finish line's right over there. I can just run over. I could win the race right now. But then she sees Chandra is getting arrested by the guards, and she's like, "Wait, what? Why is Chandra getting arrested? Like, she doesn't get arrested. Like, she has powers to make sure that doesn't happen. Like, she can fight her way out of anything. Why would she be giving herself up? I'm so confused. I don't understand what's happening." Um, and as she's getting arrested, Sita sees from across the way, Pia is running over to Jace with like a big hunk of metal, and she's going to smash him in the back of the head. But as that happens, a consulate guard punches Pia right in the stomach. She doubles over. He pulls her hair back and takes out a fucking knife
Yeah, he's
and
literally about to slit her throat.
puts it to Pia's neck. Like, all right, you tried to hit Jace. We're going to kill you.
Yeah.
And that's when Sita's like,
Damn.
oh, okay, I know what I'm going to do with my last thing of ether, which we knew this was going to happen. Like, we've been waiting for all
Oh,
three
it's
to
the
be used.
classic. They have three charges. Like,
Hmm.
they're going to use all three. The first one is designed to like show you what it can do, and the second one, I mean, in this case, was kind of useless.
Yeah.
Just
So, well, I
checked in
often think
there.
that the second one kind of feels like a waste, where you're
Yeah,
like, oh, if only we had another one. Why did we waste it?
right.
And the third one's like if she had two right now, she could obviously save a person and win the race,
And
but
win
she
the
can't.
race, but she can't because she blew that second one.
I know.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, so she decides, you know what? I will go try to fucking save Pia from this crazy ass guard. Okay, we'll arrest everybody else and the flame lady and whatever, but this random bitch, cut her throat. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck,
Because
dude?
Jace is evil, dude. He's controlling them, and she tried to hit Jace, right? So it's
Yeah, that's
like,
true. So you're thinking that Jace is the one who's telling him to slit her throat?
I think
Okay.
so. Yeah, that's what I was taking from it
Jeez.
because it's like, why is that the ultimate crime is to go after Jace?
Yeah,
Well,
that's true. That's true. You're right. That makes sense. I was just like, bro, chill. But
I
yeah,
took that as a like, oh, Jace is real evil.
real
Like,
evil. Like evil, evil.
yeah,
Uh, anyway, Sita uses the last canister to run over and save PETA from the guard using her super speed. And then she basically like just goes up, breaks his arms like a million times a second, basically. And
Yeah,
so
she like dislocates his shoulder at first. I was like, all right, that's probably it. Oh
good
no,
enough.
we're
Nope.
not stopping there.
Snap it in half again and again. So this guy's like 1 second he's holding a knife to this woman's throat. The next second his arm is like detached from his body, basically. So all right, okay, cool, sick. I like that part. She joins up with Chandra in the fight. This is also a moment where like I had thought that she had given up loot to Jace by this point. Like I thought when she was like, okay, I'll play along, you can have loot and you can handcuff me and all that stuff. But loot is still like with her. Loot's in her shirt at this moment. So like they were kind of arresting Chandra with loot in her shirt and Jace didn't just come take it already. That seems kind of strange to me. But that is what's happening. She still has possession of loot. I was a little confused about where loot was throughout this.
Yeah, I think she was like considering giving him up or telling Jace she would. I think it does say something about playing along. She'll have to play along until
Yeah.
then. So she is surrendering and intends to give up loot. I was just like, Jace would take him right away though. Like,
Immediately. Like
yeah. He
right
wouldn't
away.
like wait for you to put your hands up and have the guards come bring you over or whatever. Like he would just take it.
Yeah. Also we'll see in a second, like Jace can do some shit. So why is he waiting? Anyway, Pia, Chandra, and Sita are now all together attacking all the guards. Team Avishkar finally
Team
reunited.
Avishkar, yes.
Yes, in this moment. They're fighting everybody.
Like it
And
should have been from the beginning. Those should have been the two racers
yeah,
for Team Abishkar. Would have won no problem.
I know, maybe next year. Anyway, Vin gets back on the mic, our favorite eyeball,
Yeah.
and starts commentating everything that's going on in the race. Or in the race, sorry, in the fight. Because now it's like, oh, we got to give people what they want. It's like WWE almost. Like, oh, they're tag teaming together. They're going to beat up this guy. Kind of like that's basically what's happening.
And here's when he has like a Thopter camera
yes.
that's flying around. I was like,
Um,
oh, what happened to his crew? They
They
obviously
were-
died at some point in this
Yeah,
fucking shit show.
They got too wet, basically.
Yeah.
Everything's going really well. They're beating up a bunch of people. They're, doing all the normal stuff where they like punch people at the same time, and they're back to back fighting off folks and being a great team. And then Jace is like, you know what, fuck this shit, and just breaks Chandra's brain in half, basically, just like, and you're done. And blood starts pouring out of her ears and her eyes and her nose, and she falls to the ground with
Yeah.
loot in her shirt. And it's like, yeah, no shit, he could just do that the whole time. Just play
Right, and
ball.
that was the whole like, I won't fight you, Chandra, but these thugs
Mhm.
will. Like now that she's defeated the thugs, he's like, all right, well, I'll just do it then, I guess. It's like,
Yeah.
if it's so important, he would have just done it. He would have just taken her. I don't-
Yeah, I get there are parts of him being like, Chandra, we used to be friends. Like, I'm giving you an out. Please just give me loot. Do your shit.
Yeah.
Be the hero. Do whatever you want to do. I don't care. Just give me loot.
I don't
Nothing
give a
else
shit.
matters.
I don't actually like want to do this to you, but I also
I'm
don't not want to do it. I don't care.
It's like, I can do it if I have to, but I don't really want to until you force me. And you force me to do this. Now I'm going to do it. So, yeah, she's fucking bleeding everywhere. And he finally takes loot from her.
Yeah, he just walks over and takes loot because she's, crumpled to the ground and bleeding out of all of her,
Her fucking
like
face
everywhere you
holes.
can bleed out of.
Yeah. Vin looks up and he sees the dragon that is just flying around doing what it likes, and he's realizing like, oh, that dragon's getting a little close to me. I'm a little scared. It's like,
Getting a
oh
little
my
hot.
god, it is shooting fire right at my face. And then all of a sudden an angel flies out of nowhere and saves him using her wings as a shield against the flames. And well, it's Archangel Avacyn, sorry.
Elspeth.
It's not
That would have been a
opposite.
shocker.
That would
Holy
have been a
shit. That would
huge
have got me.
shocker.
That would have been a twist that got me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's Archangel
Just like
Elspeth.
Soren smirking in the background.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah, we're here.
And
She's
Emrakul, I
back.
don't know why.
Yeah, no, no, sorry, sorry. Man, Archangel Elspeth dives in to protect him. She's just here because she's
Yeah,
like flying. She might be like
she's still a
looking for
planeswalker, right?
dragons. She's still a planeswalker, yeah. But maybe
So
she's
she
looking for
maybe followed
dragons or
that
something.
dragon somehow.
Yeah, yeah,
That
probably.
that was kind of the interpretation I got. That there'll be a conversation, a brief conversation
Mm,
later where she talks a little bit about it. But I think she followed the dragon here through. The dragon came through some open path, and she followed him there. But
mhm.
she took her. If that's the case, she took her sweet ass time. That dragon
She sure
did some
did.
fucking damage first.
She sure did.
And I always
Um,
imagined that planeswalking was much faster than taking open paths. So felt like
yeah.
she should have been there a little sooner.
But also, like, does she know where the Omen Path goes? You know, did she have to actually go through the Omen Path right after him? But
She's
also,
just like bouncing around guessing planes. Was it to this one?
uh,
Was it to this one? You know
nope,
what? Maybe I
nope,
should
nope,
just go
nope,
through the
nope.
open path myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll just go through that one. Um, at this point, as Elspeth is saving Vin from the blaze, Nissa finally shows up. Holy shit. I thought Nissa would be there at the finish line cheering on Chandra, and then she was just like at home or something. I don't know. Like
Yeah, she was watching on TV.
right, right, right. It just takes her such a long time to get to the race. I'm just like, Nissa, you're not going to show up to the end of the race?
Can't believe that.
Can't believe that. You should
Unbelievable.
have like gotten up like what? You wake up early, you get a good breakfast, you go cheer on your partner.
She's doing
Crazy.
this for you, man. She's doing it
God,
for you.
crazy. Um, she's running in and like looks up at the dragon, being like, "Oh man, I should probably deal with that because that's going to do a lot of damage." And then she sees Elspeth. She's like, "Oh, never mind.
Oh
Elspeth
no,
can do
we're
it."
good. We're good. Yeah.
I say, I don't need to deal with dragons if Elspeth is here because I just I couldn't be bothered. You know,
She's a
it's
planeswalker. I'm not.
yeah, it's
Let's
like dragons are so
we'll leave it
hard
to
to
the
fight.
pros.
I just don't want to fight a dragon. Also, it has fire, and I do like plant magic. Like, it's just not a
Yeah,
good
it's not a
time.
good
Like,
matchup.
it's just, yeah, yeah. It's my weakness. Like, why would I have to do this? I don't want to do it. I'll let her do it. She has like infinite life gain. That's much better
Yeah,
than
she'll be
my
fine.
like plant tokens.
Yeah.
Um, so as she's doing that, she runs over and sees Chandra is curled up on the ground and is trying to give her first aid. When she looks over and sees Jason Vraska scoop up loot and then vanish. And as this is kind of happening, Nissa, they're like someone's yelling at Vraska, just basically being like, "You don't have to go with him. You can stay here with us," or whatever.
Yeah,
And they're just trying to, you know, it seems like Vraska's not super on board with everything that Jace is doing,
definitely.
and they're trying to kind of get in at any way that they can and pull maybe Vraska away, but
The other thing that
doesn't
I was
doesn't work
picking up
out.
from this is like Chandra seemed to have a like, oh, the connection I used to have with Jason Nebraska or whatever. Like it feels different. Something is
Right.
off. It's weird. And Nissa had the like, I'm being pulled to them. Like
Mm,
I do have a connection with these people and like I'll get them to stay and stuff. So I think it was like the people who were turned Phyrexian
right.
still have some sort of like
Oh,
connection going on between each other, and then Chandra has a disconnect with them because
right. Oh,
she
that makes
wasn't
sense.
returned.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
That's what I was
Yeah,
kind of getting from this scene, just the way it described like Nissa's natural connection she had
to
to
them.
them.
That's right, because Nissa did talk about fighting against Elspeth, I think.
And yeah, Nissa had the disconnect with Elspeth, where Elspeth was like scared her because she
Hmm.
remembered fighting her.
Fighting her and how awful that was. Um, yeah, so
But there's still a little, I don't know,
there's
still a little oil back there or something.
yeah, it's rattling around in their brain somewhere. Um, so Jace, Vraska, and Loot have now vanished. Winter, broken leg and all, stumbles from the race. I think he broke his leg either in the crash or Jace like snapped it. Um,
Yeah,
one of the two. But anyway, he's stumbling towards the finish line, being like, "The race isn't over. I can still get there. I can win my freedom of the house. I'm gonna slow." And it's too late. The champions of Amonkhet fly straight past him. The wall's down, apparently. They didn't run
Yeah.
into it. And they are able to win the race. And basically, as that's happening, in the background, you can see a door open and a demon arm basically pulls Winter back into Duskmorn. And he is trapped there
I don't
forever.
want to know what happens to
Doesn't
him.
doesn't seem great.
But
Um,
the Amonkhet too, like they're just in their chariots and they decided there's a dragon like fight attacking people. They decided they're trying to just help people and they're not
yeah.
actually really concerned with the race anymore and they just kind of accidentally go over the finish line in their way of like Basri's creating sand walls for people and stuff and
That's
like
true. I mean, like I do think that they get across the finish line and then they're like, and let's go fight, and they like jump away. But it is funny, like okay, so they win the race, but the way that it's kind of brought to us in the actual story is kind of in the future third person. It's basically saying like the Amonkhet would tell the story for years to come. These are the things that they would tell. These are the things that they wouldn't. They wouldn't
right.
remember winter and all that stuff. They would remember leaving immediately to fight and all these kinds of things and the stories that they tell of the heroism that they have. But it was kind of a strange moment where it's like they win the race, but like we don't really see it happen, and it just kind of happens, and the
Right.
game's kind of over, and you are realizing in that moment that like whoever wins the race doesn't really matter in the end, um, especially because like I don't know what did they need the Aetherspark for? Also, they're like, what place are they in? Like 10th, like last.
Well, I was wondering if they want the Aetherspark because like the god has requested this of them to like
Mm,
because he was obviously curious about the other planes,
right,
right?
that's true. They just give it to one of their gods and make them Ketchermoose can now planeswalk.
Or like maybe the gods even with the Aetherspark can't leave, but it just they were
Hmm.
like reporting back to them. They're like, "Hey, you wanted to know about other planes? I'll go check it out for you."
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. That's true. Um, but
which
it
would line
is
up with their like devotion kind of,
right.
you know.
Um, it is kind of this funny thing, though. It feels a little anticlimactic. We had like the Keen Haulers, the Speed Brood, the Speed Demons, the Aether Rangers, like all these different folks that were like racing on this team, all hit this wall, can't finish the race, have to get in this big fight, and then of course the people that are in like eighth or ninth or whatever
Have like a
race over the
chariot.
end.
Everyone else has rocket cars. They have some like
Yeah, and
you know
they're able to like
camels
roll over
pulling
the
a
finish.
chariot or
Yeah,
something.
and they win somehow. You're like, oh, because you didn't have to fight everybody. Nice. Okay, cool. Um,
Yeah.
Also, I will say that like in the art of the Aetherspark, the like not the special ones, but the regular one, there's like legit just a zombie mummified hand in the art holding
Hmm.
up the Aetherspark, and it's just like, oh, okay.
I
So
guess the Amonkhet win. And
I guess they win. There was some speculation that that hand was Vraska's hand because people had seen pictures of Vraska's hands where they have like they're kind of black with long fingernails and like the hand is wrapped in like mummification stuff. So it kind
yeah,
of looks like a Vraska hand a little bit, but ultimately it's like this is a zombie hand. This looks like a zombie hand.
I didn't notice that at all. It's probably supposed to be the guy who got stung by the
Hmm.
bee, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, which I was starting to suspect was the Amonkhet because they spent so much time on that. Once it
Yeah.
became clear that it wasn't going to be one of like Chandra or
Hmm.
Spitfire that like wins this thing, I was like, oh, so it's going to be the Amonkhet because they had that whole thing about like, would he have sacrificed himself for nothing if
Exactly.
they don't end up winning? Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to have some sort of emotional thing to be like, oh, sweet, I like that they won, instead of like,
Right.
oh, so like the Voyagers
The
won, like the
Right.
fucking
Yeah.
robot
I kind
guys.
of wish they'd done that. Like there
Yeah.
was one guy with a chainsaw that happened to get past the trap and he
Yeah.
just like cruises in at the end. Like I would have
He
loved
gets
that.
it.
It's just
Yeah.
like the most random winner ever.
Or like we don't know who the winner is, and they have a bunch of different versions of the Aetherspark, which is every different team's hand grabbing it. Like,
Right. Yeah. Cool stuff like that.
but no, they did not do that.
There were just too many teams, I think, for that. If there were like a few teams,
If there were like five or three, it'd be a lot
yeah,
easier. But
three
10,
for sure, five is
yeah,
pushing it, and
pushing it.
10 is like, no way.
Yeah, it's like 10 different teams. It's just a lot. Um, but yeah, anyway. All right, so they won the Aetherspark. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there isn't really any big
It's so
momentous
Mario
occasion.
Kart though, right? Like the one
Yeah,
who was in last and had like the blue shell and got like a bunch of stuff. So ends up
yeah.
pulling it out.
I also want to say like, so what did it matter what place you got in the other parts of the race?
That was not clear. I think it's supposed to be like your starting position in the next race is based on how you
Yeah,
did in the previous race. And
but like
that's it. So like
that means like
whoever
kind of
crosses, it's not a very good system.
it's a horrible system.
Like you
Like
do a circuit in Mario Kart, it matters what place you got in each one, right?
yeah, but if it matters because you have points that like
That's what I
stack
mean.
up.
Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
this race did not have that. It's
No, it
just
was just
like, oh,
like
if you finish first last race, you get to start in first in this race,
mhm.
and then whoever crosses the finish line wins. I was thinking that too. It's like just doesn't like whoever crosses this line just wins. Like,
Just
what was the
wins.
point of the other three races?
Yeah, like what's the whole point of Spitfire being like, "Oh, I was in second, that sucks," or "Oh, I was in sixth, what the hell?" It's just like
Yeah,
it didn't matter. You just had to win the last one.
you were just in sixth at like the 25% mark of the race. That
Yeah,
doesn't
it's like it
really
doesn't
matter.
matter. It doesn't matter. So that was kind of annoying to be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like I get it if the whole race is continuous and obviously the last person who crosses wins and each one is like a different lap of the race, but that's not how they did it.
It's essentially what it was. They just had breaks, right? But it's like you pick up wherever you left off. So you finished the last one in sixth, you could start the next one in sixth. So it's sort of
Yeah.
like a continuous race.
But like
But
the time difference between each person is so vast. Like we had an entire battle and fight before the chariot came over the
that's
like
true.
there's
There's a difference
no
between
way.
narrowly in sixth and like
Yeah.
way behind in sixth, and they probably don't stagger the race
Yeah.
appropriately.
They don't stagger it by times or whatever. So it's like anyway, I thought that actual construction of the race was like this doesn't make any sense.
It
Like
doesn't make sense. You're right. Yeah.
but also to be fair, in the end, it doesn't fucking matter who wins the Aetherspark because it's nobody we care about and whatever.
Yeah.
So like,
Which I think is fine. I think the final ending of like the Aetherspark is not really a thing we have to worry about.
exactly.
It's just a
Well, and,
MacGuffin.
yeah, and to be fair, the whole time, like we were saying, Chandra's motivation made no fucking sense.
Yeah.
Like Winter's made sense because he wasn't gonna keep it. He was gonna give it to somebody else so he could
Sita
win.
had like a
His,
teenager motivation.
yeah, that was like, oh, it's
Get
kind of
away
like, oh
from my
man, if
parents, but I need to
yeah.
do it even faster than the Omen paths will allow.
Yeah, it's like, girl, you have a fucking car. Just take your
Yeah,
car
you're an
somewhere.
expert driver. Just drive through the Omen
That's what
path.
cars are for. Come on. Yeah, so ultimately, at least it wasn't as bizarre as like MKM, where it was like, what the fuck? That one
I
was
would have
just like,
accepted Amanketi.
hmm
That's fine. Total random, like the Voyagers, just being like
just
celebrating.
somebody completely random.
Or Duretti. If Duretti was like, hey, I'm just gonna
Those are
go
the
kind of
only ones you would have
like
accepted.
pour his tea and just walks over the line.
I
Anything else is bullshit.
That's insane. Those are insane. I would have obviously, if Spitfire or Chandra won, you'd be like, of
No,
course.
no.
If Winter
Unacceptable.
wins, I'm also kind of interested because he's been
Actually, I
so
would have accepted that. Yeah. If
yeah.
Winter had won, that would have been. If he actually like hobbled over at the end,
What I
I would
was
have been
kind
like,
of
okay.
expecting Yeah, instead they're just like, you know what? Fuck you, Winter.
Because he's a survivor, right? So him
Yeah,
hobbling over with a broken leg, totally fucked up, to guarantee his continued survival would have been like, that's fine. I'm all right with
yeah,
that ending.
that's true. That's true. Though Winter does care about delirium more than survival, but you're right. Um,
True. Yeah.
but
Odd
yeah, I think any of those
card
are.
design, but true.
I also would expect like, oh, it's the Voyagers or whatever, but they get across the finish line and then Vin says something like, "Oh, we tallied up the results and actually it's somebody else and it's not you," and they
Right.
take it out of their hand and give it to somebody else. Like I could also see
It
that
does
happening.
appear that the Voyagers would win, but we must award 10 points to
Yeah,
Team Avishkar
to
for
their
heroic
brave.
bravery.
Yeah, standing up to your friends is even harder than standing up to your enemies. Um,
And I love how all of the point allotments are for bravery, which is literally what like only one of the houses is explicitly about.
we have immediately just moved over to Harry Potter as we
Yeah,
do.
well, we haven't done it
Um,
in a while. We used to do it all the time.
It's true. We gotta sneak him in there every once in a while. But you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's obvious Dumbledore was also like Gryffindor or
I
whatever.
award extra points for bravery, and one of the houses is all
Yeah.
about that.
We also give negative points for cunning, which is
Yeah.
what some houses are good at, and we get rid of them.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. It's probably good
And
to
minus
like.
5 points for being miscellaneous. Sorry,
Mhm.
Hufflepuff. We have to
Sorry,
take that one
Hufflepuff.
away
Yeah,
from. Yeah.
yeah. It really is like minus points for the Nazi one that we continue to let continue to happen, and we
Yeah.
don't stop them from being like that. I don't know. Anyway, Harry Potter aside, we all of a sudden are in Chandra's bedroom where Elspeth is healing her basically back to normal. So like
Yeah.
fixing her brain up, getting rid of all of her blood. She has like a headache and some scrapes and bumps and stuff, but for the most part, she's not like dead anymore. Thank God there's an angel around randomly for this to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
But Elspeth does say, like, hey, we need to talk. Planes are seeing dragons. Like, dragons are appearing on
mhm.
planes that have never had dragons before. And, like, I think it's a big, like, part of a bigger thing. And this was when I was kind of like, but, like, wouldn't you expect that? Like, there would be wildlife that has never been seen on planes
Mhm.
because of the omen paths that opened up. Like that's
Yeah,
something you would now deal with. I assume dragons would be a part of that. But that's what made me feel like Elspeth followed the dragon there because
that does make sense. Yeah.
she is dealing with this ongoing issue that she is worried about, which is that
Mhm.
dragons are appearing
Yeah.
on various planes. Um, and then Chandra's like, Nissa's like, I don't know how I can't, like, I don't know why I'm here. I can't help with this. And
Yeah.
Chandra's like, can we talk about this later? Like,
Mhm.
man, it's
I'm
like
like,
I've been through a lot. And Elspeth's like, well, no, like I'm not gonna be here later, but fine. And
fine. We just won't.
dips.
Yeah, it's just like gone. Um, they are like, oh, sweet. Can Sita give us a ride to the award ceremony? Which they had enough time to go home before the award ceremony of the race.
Oh yeah, the heal from their. I mean, to be fair, these are pretty exceptional circumstances. I think
Yeah, that's true.
normally it should happen like on the field kind of thing.
Yeah,
Uh, maybe that's the thing. Like, well, we didn't anticipate a dragon.
that's
Okay.
true. Or like an entire terrorist attack and
It was rescheduled. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like
okay.
that's fair.
Safer grounds.
Yeah.
So we this last little chunk is kind of at the same time, which I thought was a kind of interesting way to do it. So we are both in Ghirapur and also on the plain of Tarkir. The champions of Amonkhet all grabbed the Aetherspark together, very important, and they all hoisted up very high, with thousands of people watching them, cheering them on, being like, "Yeah, you did it! Even though you were like last, good job, everybody." It should have been two other teams, but there was a huge thing in the middle. Whatever. Sorry, not bitter about them winning or anything. Um, and we are on the cliffs of Tarkir, where Jace is basically talking to Vraska, but we can't really hear what he's saying. and Lute is asleep in her arms, and then Jace walks ahead of them, and that is the end of the Aetherdrift story.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up quickly before I forgot, and I have partially forgotten, but it is something I wanted to mention, is that I think off air, I don't know if I mentioned it last week during the episode, but off air I talked about how I'm reading a book called Mistborn,
Hmm.
which is a very famous, like relatively modern but famous work in the fantasy genre these days. And it's my first time reading it, but there were so many allusions to it in this story
Hmm.
that it felt like it had to be intentional. It was a bunch of like little things, like five or
Mm.
different little things. The ones I remember off the top of my head are the main character of that story's name is Vin. There's a scene when the dragon shoots something and it talks like about raining ash. In this book, it's like a dystopian fantasy and it rains ash in that area.
Mm.
And the big one was there's a substance in this book that if you take it, you become like you see everything in slow-mo and you can react so quickly to
Oh,
it
okay.
that like it kind of gives you superhuman powers, but it's very like rare and expensive and you can only do it for a very short time. And then they do it take it to the next level where it's like the only way to fight someone who's on that is to take it yourself. And what happens if both people do that is that you see all of the like possibilities of what they're gonna do before they happen,
Mm.
but you don't know which one they
Which one is
took.
they're gonna do?
And and so you have these like battles where these people are like leaving images of it, sort of going in all of their different things they might do. But there was like several forget what the other two were, but there were like five things that were just like this author is like I think a fan of this
Hmm.
work and is like leaving little nuggets,
Yeah.
which I only kind of picked up on. I mean, the Aether one that slows you, like it sounded
Yeah.
exactly like it. That was the big
Yeah.
one. And then I started to notice the other things because I happen to be reading this right now. And I was just like, it's kind of interesting. I feel like there's stuff I'm missing about other fantasy works or whatever. Like I just happen to be reading this one, but I think the
Hmm.
author's probably kind of dropping little uh,
Homages and
Easter
little
eggs
things.
in
Yeah.
for people who are fans of the
That's
genre.
cool.
Um,
Yeah.
so I wanted to mention that too because I think that was kind of it was a neat thing for me where it was like it happened enough times that I was like, okay, this is intentional at this point.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that like this isn't the only fantasy that has inspired them. That
Hmm.
they leave little Easter eggs for, which is a cool thing to do. So
That
wanted to
is
give
cool.
them props for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say that like as far as this whole story went, it was basically kind of what I was expecting. Like obviously the kind of minutia of like how exactly the race worked was not what I wanted or what I thought, but ultimately I really liked the way that the all of it was written. I enjoyed like the parallels between Sita and Chandra and how they were able to put different scenes that were the same, but obviously were in different situations. Um, was nice.
Yeah,
And like overall, I think it is difficult as far as like making like writing a race. There's just so much action that happens that it's I think difficult to do compared to other fights like sorry, other stories where it's mostly just like a lot of fighting and I think ultimately it doesn't super matter and there are parts where it's like this person's in first, not this person's in first and coming up with all this stuff it's just like a lot to try to handle. But I
yeah,
think they did a pretty good job, and there was enough fun things throughout it that didn't feel like it was just kind of like um, reciting the list of who's in first now.
yeah. I feel the same way. I think this wasn't one of my favorite stories that we've done, but
Hmm.
I don't know that that was the author's fault, really. It's just that like
Hmm.
it was a lot of race and like
Yeah,
describing a race is not that
I
interesting to me personally.
yeah, I think this is my favorite of the works that we have read from them, from
Yeah, from the
K
author.
Arsenal. Arsenal Rivera,
Yeah.
um, because they did March of the Machine and the Innistrad ones. I think I
Hmm.
liked one chapter of the Innistrad ones, um, and March of the Machine in general was fine, but like I don't really. It just seems like
I think
there's just a
this was
million
better
things
than
happening.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I enjoyed this one a lot more, and there was like even though there's a bunch of different characters and there's 10 different teams and all these things, it
yeah.
did feel like we still had a lot of like little moments that were important to me, and like
Right.
um, so that was really nice. So overall,
Yeah.
I liked this story. Not my favorite one, but I still liked it all the same.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. All right, well, Jeff, let's go to last call. Let's talk about our beer of the night with Dog Park Paleo.
Yes.
Sorry.
Um,
As always, we rate our beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. This has nothing to do with what tier you are in currently, so don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You spit them out, you pour them on the ground, you don't like them at all. At all.
Silver beers are bad or they're just boring. Macro brews tend to find themselves in this category.
Gold beers are fine, but you wouldn't really drink this again.
And platinum beers are good and you would drink it again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You like these a lot, you show them off to your friends.
And mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the Amon Ket racing team of the beer
Hmm.
world. The
Yeah.
champions.
The champions of Amonkhet. Um, yeah, what did you think about Dog Park?
It was okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to critique about it, but I also don't have a lot to like really like if I just had I don't know if I could pick this out again, kind of like it didn't have anything super distinctive about it either. So it just
Hmm.
kind of falls into what I think a lot of them do. And we
Uh-huh.
maybe even alluded to it at the start of the show of like it's just a well-made pale ale.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're going for with this of
Yeah.
we're not trying to do anything crazy, just like, hey, this might be your, not if not your gateway, your transition from your gateway into
Hmm.
the the craft beer world. I think it probably would do that job pretty well. But that being said, it's not something I'm really going to come back to personally.
Hmm.
Um, so I think probably it's good at what it's designed to do. It's a good pale ale. It's well made and stuff. But am I gonna, when I go back to Bigford, am I gonna pick this one up? Probably not.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I liked it. It was definitely less easy drinking than I was hoping. It felt a
Yeah.
little bit, there's a lot more bitter notes in it, and bitter notes in pale ales that I'm like, there's like certain hop flavors that are not my favorite.
Mhm.
Um, and this one was just like less smooth than I kind of was hoping for. Um, but like I said, like you said as well, really well made. We didn't have any issues with carbonation or anything like with the last time we had Bickford. So
Yeah.
all that was great. But ultimately, I think that also kind of means like it's gold. Like I'll like
Yeah.
it's not the one that I'm going back to specifically. It tastes like a nice pale ale, but there are other ones that are easy like I like more or are readily accessible. And I think there's some other ones that are a little bit more interesting from this brewery that I'm excited to try. That
Yeah.
will probably have me going back. And maybe if if I'm at the distillery and I want a pale ale, I'll drink this maybe. But am I going to go out of my way to just pick it up? Probably not.
Yeah, exactly. I think gold's the right thing for this. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily for us either. So,
Yeah, that's true.
um,
Yeah. Anyway, with that, let's go to closing time, Jeff. You can always reach us at Arena Regulars. We're on Instagram and Blue Sky. Yeah.
you may also find us on Arena itself under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That's Zulberg on on Instagram and Blue Sky. I'm also regular Zach on TikTok and Twitch. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is our Discord channel. If you're playing in the event this weekend, come share your pool. We will give you our opinions. That doesn't necessarily mean you should take them, but we could definitely have a discussion about it. It's super fun. I go by regular Jeff on there. The link for that is in the show notes.
That is right. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there as well. Also, comment on YouTube. All those types of things help us out a lot, and it's really appreciated. So, yeah, please reach out to us because we'd like to hear your comments. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that if you ever see a moon falling out of the sky towards the ground, just remember it's probably a distraction for the dinosaur lizard trap in front of you. It's a classic move.
Classic move. All right, good night. All right, that's fine.